Hello and welcome to The World Today. I'm Layo Olarinde. Here's what's coming up on the program. FBI and Utah officials name murder Charlie Kirk suspect as Tyler Robinson, thanking the family for doing the right thing in turning him in. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu moves forward with settlement expansion plan in the occupied West Bank, saying there would be no Palestinian state. Plus, Brazil sentences former President Jair Bolsonaro to 27 years after being found guilty of plotting military coup. Thank you for joining us once again. We'll begin with an update on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Utah Governor Spencer Cox has confirmed that the suspect in the killing has been apprehended. Governor Cox identified the suspect as Tyler Robinson at a news conference, stating that a family member helped turn him in, with both family and a friend accompanying him into custody. Well, earlier, sources said Robinson confessed to his father, and a family member reported that he had become more political in recent years, saying he didn't like Kirk. Bullet casings which were found at the scene were found with inscriptions, including one that read, "Hey, fascists, catch." Authorities have since examined the messages for further evidence. Robinson is reportedly from southwestern Utah and is not a student at the Utah Valley University. However, Governor Cox has thanked the family for doing what he calls the right thing in turning him in, while FBI Director Kash Patel praised the investigation, saying it is a historic progress that was made within 33 hours. Well, the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk continues to spark debate in Houston. Locals have expressed a mix of grief, criticism, and calls for changes to the country's gun laws. Some admitted they could understand the motivations behind the shooter. However, they insist violence is never the answer. Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist who inspired a generation of young people to back U.S. President Donald Trump in 2024, was shot dead at an event in Utah on Wednesday. The 31-year-old was reportedly responding to a question about gun violence in front of an audience of 3,000 people. He was then rushed to the hospital, but his death was later confirmed.
I'm a Christian as well, and I'm sorry to his family who lost a father, and I'm sorry for the people who followed him, and some as a follower for God. But I think he got what he deserved.
Okay.
He was. I don't doubt that he believed in God and he was a follower of God. But I think in his attempts to love God, he forgot to, love the creations of God. And I think he was just. His way of approaching everything was wrong, and it did nothing but divide and make us hate one another.
I rarely ever agreed with Mr. Kirk, but I wouldn't wish death upon anyone. So I hope he's at rest right now and at peace, but I would never wish that upon anyone. That was really surprising yesterday, shocked. Really big problem in this nation. I mean, yesterday we had the Kirk assassination, obviously, and then we also had, at the same time, a school shooting, I believe, in Colorado. And we've had another school shooting. We've had 46 shootings this year. That's not normal. I have my own opinions on it. I believe we should have some level of more control. But at the end of the day, that's something that should be discussed separately. It's going to affect... The two events that happened recently are very...
I was surprised when I heard about it because, assassinations are just a common thing, right? But I feel like I could understand like the motivations behind the person who did it. I think that freedom of speech is really important, but also actions do have consequences, and obviously it's not Kirk's fault that someone decided to assassinate him, but he was doing something that something happened that made someone really like mad at him in order to assassinate him. I think that having greater gun control, yes, that will lead to less gun violence. Obviously, it won't completely end it. People will still find ways to go against the law, but having greater control in gun violence, it will prevent things. I mean, not all assassinations, but it will prevent at least more common shootings, such as like school shootings or other such.
To be honest, I was really sad about it because no matter what your stance is on his opinions, no matter where you stand, left or right, still somebody died in a college campus, and if that person that shot him fired another bullet, there will be another casualty, whether he was a Democrat, Republican, communist, or whatever he is. He's still somebody that died, and we should all be sad. And if you like it, whether you like it or not, he still represents more than 50% of our country, because he is a Republican and he supports Trump and all that. And guess who won the last election? It was Trump. So lots of people support his views. Lots of people share the same opinion as him. So whether you like it or not, lots of people are like him. And we should not celebrate any death, whether it is a Republican, Democrat, or even in any other country. We should support. Ways in order to. We should find ways to stop this from happening. Stop gun violence. And I know it's a very hard topic. It's a very controversial topic, whether to stop guns or not. But the truth is, we can't. I don't think we can no longer stop that gun violence. There's still going to be some people with guns, no matter what we do. But I think we should start regulating more how we give out these guns.
Elsewhere, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has criticized the reactions rising from the murder of US activist Charlie Kirk, calling it despicable. Mr. Farage, who also paid tribute to Kirk, hailed him as the most dynamic young American in America and denounced the chaos in the European Parliament that was disrupted by booing and jeering.
Great tragedy this week with a very good friend of mine killed in America. And I just have to say that some of the responses that we've heard to that murder have been, I think, frankly, quite despicable. And I just wanted to put that on the record. And we are a party that believes in active, energetic debate. We're a party that believes in free speech, but even free speech has its limits. And nobody that ever represents Reform or wears our badge will ever engage in such conversations, even against people we deeply disagree with, because that's what the democratic process is supposed to be all about.
Well, let's now join our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird, for more on the Charlie Kirk assassination. Hello, Maria. It's just been 24 hours since we last spoke. A lot of more information out there. Suspects now in custody, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, and apparently he confessed to his father. What more can you tell us? You know, what more information was revealed at that news conference?
Yes, you're exactly correct. Charlie Kirk did go to his home where he was born in the southwestern part of the state of Utah. And so in that area, there was about 3.5 hours away from actually where he was found initially, and where you're seeing all the video of the actual shooting area. And so in that area where he was found, and where his home was, he obviously went to his parents to give them insight as to what had just happened. The father immediately called the youth minister. Once he called the youth minister then then advised them to contact the authorities. And that's kind of when the process began, when he was apprehended and retained. And so that is kind of the beginning of this process of him being found. And as you have probably heard and noted, it was about 33 hours from the time that the incident until he was actually detained.
And so, do we know of the charges that are being brought against him? You know, Robinson reportedly had political motivations and even left a message on the bullet casing. How is this being interpreted by federal authorities? Perhaps this particular act could increase the charges being brought against him?
Yes, and so political. Obviously, the documents that were noted specifically talked about three kind of annotations that he put on these bullets. I think at this time it's being used to identify whether or not this was politically motivated. I think many people are assuming that it was, but there's still further investigation to clearly identify that it was politically motivated, and those are going to be some of the evidence used for that. Obviously, some of the evidence also used as to whether or not they're expecting that potentially this could have been broader than just Charlie Kirk. And so I think where the investigation is going to lend to is kind of what was happening prior to, what were some of the thoughts of the suspect before he even took to the rooftop of this building. Now, we know they've also spoken with a roommate that he had to try to get a little bit more about the person. As you've heard, probably his family also noted they at dinner tables and at dinner time he was talking more politically motivated speech and kind of what some may consider to be leaning toward a hate type of speech. And so that, I think, is all of what's going to be considered at this time. But again, I think that when we talk about these type of mass shootings, and in this case, in an assassination in the United States, it's really also going to lean heavily toward security measures. How was the security on that day, and also the way in which weaponry is provided, and how people can easily access this type of weaponry that can obviously take someone's life in an instant.
Indeed. And with the suspect now in custody, you mentioned, this is just the beginning of getting justice for Charlie Kirk. But what more can we expect, in the coming days?
What you'll expect to hear is you'll hear the White House kind of provide their positioning on this. Obviously, this is someone that was expected to rise in the ranks politically, especially when you talk about the MAGA party that has so deeply supported President Trump. And so you're going to, probably hear more about the person, the character. But I think where the country is resonating right now is really on the death, the unfortunate piece of this, really being able to understand that regardless of someone's political beliefs, we never want to see someone's life end in death. But obviously, because it's so politically motivated and there's so much more than just this killing that people are discussing at this time, you'll also begin to really look at it and hear people discussing the character of Charlie Kirk and also the character of the suspect, and kind of looking to see how those two potentially will play a role in this.
All right, but we know Charlie Kirk's body, has been flown back to Arizona on Thursday. Do we have any info yet on, plans for the funeral and, a state funeral, or how to honor, his legacy?
Well, typically you don't have state funerals unless we're talking about a president, vice president, secretary of state, someone that has a formal office within the White House. We know this is very different. We saw, as you're showing here, the vice president has been with the family as they were getting the body to Arizona. And so when you think about kind of how the White House has wrapped their arms around this case and really his role within the administration, even though it was an indirect role within the administration, we could see something a little bit different this time. Not sure about a state funeral, but we could see some things that are offered to him that aren't offered to traditional citizens that have unfortunate, untimely deaths such as this.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Maria Bird, Washington, D.C. correspondent. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has officially moved forward with a settlement expansion plan in the occupied West Bank, a move that could make the establishment of a future Palestinian state impossible. While speaking at a ceremony in the Male Adum near the site of the planned E1 settlement, Prime Minister Netanyahu said there would be no Palestinian state, stressing that it will not be established. The E1 project would effectively cut much of the West Bank off from East Jerusalem, and it involves the construction of 3,400 homes for Israeli settlers in the area between Jerusalem and the Male Adumim settlement. Israel had previously halted the plan in recent years due to objections from the United States, its European allies, and other world powers who viewed the project as a major obstacle to any future peace agreement with Palestinians. Brazil's Supreme Court has sentenced former President Jair Bolsonaro to 27 years and 3 months in prison after finding him guilty of attempting a coup d'etat to cling to power following his 2022 election defeat. The ruling marks the first time in Brazil's history that a former head of state has been convicted of plotting a coup. The court declared the scheme included plans to annul election results, dissolve courts, empower the military, and also to assassinate then President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The former president's defense minister and Navy commander were also convicted. The sentence for the 70-year-old former president includes crimes such as leading a criminal organization, attacking the democratic state of law, conspiracy, and damage to public property. Meanwhile, thousands have filled the streets of Brasilia, as you see, to celebrate the conviction of former President Bolsonaro for his role in an attempted coup. The 70-year-old has been sentenced to 27 years and 3 months in prison for attempting a coup against President Lula following the 2022 elections. Former President Bolsonaro himself strongly denied the charges, and he says they are politically motivated. The Supreme Federal Court's panel of 5 justices delivered the verdict, with 1 Justice Luis O voting to acquit Bolsonaro and 4 backing his conviction. And as we end the program, a state-of-the-art projection mapping light show has transformed the 15th century Cheongdong Palace in Seoul, South Korea, into a vibrant digital canvas with the lotus flower as its central motif, symbolizing purity and peace in Korean culture. Well, footage currently displaying on your screen shows digital lotuses blossoming with dragons weaving among them under a cascade of cherry blossoms, all set to traditional Korean music. Light installations blending traditional motifs with digital arts illuminate pathways through various theme zones, offering visitors a rare opportunity to explore the palace after dark, surrounded by colorful digital petals flutter through the air, creating a truly fantastic atmosphere. Well, running until November 8th, the program also includes traditional performances and illuminated palace trails, giving visitors a chance to immerse themselves in Korean heritage under the night sky. Well, it's a beautiful sight to behold. That's the program for today and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde. Have a lovely weekend.